So today we're talking about the "it's 80% diet" rule, which is a complete myth that I've heard quite a bit. Raise your hand if you've heard this rule before. Okay, put your hand down, dude. You know, this is a YouTube video. You're looking kind of stupid right now. So we're going to look at this in three different ways. The first is going to be building muscle. The second is going to be fat loss. And the third is going to be overall health. I think these should encompass just about every single goal. So if you go up to someone in the gym and they say it's 80% diet for muscle growth, what they're saying is that only 20% is their training volume, training intensity, frequency, RPE, effort, exercise selection, technique, progression, periodization, training partners, sleep, stress, lifestyle, genetics, consistency, coaching, knowledge. All of that is only 20% of the results? That doesn't make any sense at all. You see people in prison who have the worst diet imaginable and they're still jacked. So it is not 80% diet. Second of all, what does that even mean? It's 80% diet? That is not actionable advice. That is not useful advice. That doesn't actually give you anything to use. So when it comes to muscle growth, you can actually gain muscle in a deficit. A surplus can help, but studies consistently show that you can gain lean tissue and muscle in a caloric deficit. So if diet is so important, why can you gain muscle and how can you gain muscle in a caloric deficit? Studies show it time and time again. Second of all, you don't need that much protein. All these people suggesting a gram per pound have not read the research. Some people suggest 2 grams per pound or 1.5 grams per pound. That is usually people either 1, taking steroids, or B, they are selling supplements, or possibly both. So if you have a steroid user who is selling protein powder, they're not going to tell you the 0.7 to 0.8 grams per kilo that the research actually shows. They're going to say, oh yeah, well if you go up to 18 grams per pound, well then you can get some secret hidden benefit and unlock the secret level. No, you don't need that much protein, and I would say unless you are just under eating chronically, or you are possibly a vegan or vegetarian, you're probably getting enough protein. Protein is not going to be the limiting factor for muscle growth. If someone comes to me and they say, Coach Geoff, I can't gain muscle, what should I do? My first thought is never eat more protein. Unless I see their diet and they are, consuming very, very little protein, that is never the first cause that I would look at. It would either be their training, their sleep, or something else. Progressive overload is probably going to be the biggest one, but it's never going to be the diet. Third of all, meal timing. If you eat 3 times per day or 6 times per day, the muscle gains are going to be very, very, very similar, if not identical. If you eat post-workout, if you delay that meal by an hour, it doesn't really matter. Studies have shown that this anabolic window, or whatever the heck they call it, doesn't actually matter. Supplements. Guess what? I'm very minimalistic when it comes to supplements because you don't need very many of them. BCAAs, BS. Creatine, it can be okay, but don't expect it to, put on sheets and sheets of muscle onto your body. The fact of the matter is, most supplements are not going to be a game changer. In terms of specific foods, I would say a good rule of thumb, a good way of thinking, is that there are no specific magic muscle building foods. If someone says to you, like, I ate this food and suddenly saw incredible progress, that is BS, okay? If someone is like, I ate beef heart and I saw, radical gains compared to not eating beef heart, well, that could be placebo, it could be coincidence, maybe they changed some other area of their life, or they're an elite athlete where they can actually notice these minuscule improvements. If you're just a normal person looking to get in decent shape, you don't need to bother with optimizing every single tiny detail. The fact of the matter is that muscle growth is going to be genetics, training, sleep, and hormone levels. And some of that can be influenced by diet, but I wouldn't say that diet is going to be the number one factor. It is pretty far down the list for muscle growth. Furthermore, it's really hard to just assign a percentage. It's 80% diet. Well, if your diet is horrible, maybe diet is a higher percentage of what will impact your results. If your diet is already pretty good, it's going to be very, very low in terms of percentage. So you can't just say it's 80% diet. Maybe it's 80% for very few people. Maybe it's 33% for other people. Maybe it's 28.44321% for another person. So just saying it's 80% diet is really just silly. So next, let's look at fat loss. And fat loss, I will absolutely agree that diet is going to be more important than for muscle growth. You can gain muscle in a deficit, but you're not really going to lose fat in a surplus. I guess it can plausibly, theoretically happen if you are, stimulating muscle growth enough to create an effective fat deficit, because your muscles are soaking up the energy and you're losing fat even in a surplus. It can happen, it's just very, very rare. I would say for fat loss, yes, it's going to be mostly calories, and that calories, it's going to be mostly your diet. However, if you equate calories, two separate diets are going to have almost no difference in terms of fat loss. So, you've probably seen these people who went on these fast food diets and lost a lot of weight to prove a point. As long as you equate calories, nothing else really matters. If you equate calories, and especially if you equate macronutrients, there is going to be very, very little difference in terms of fat loss. I mean, we're talking it's going to be 95% similar. In terms of meal timing, it's going to be almost identical. So if you eat 3 meals, if you eat 6 meals, if the calories are the same, very, very little difference. Another factor is going to be supplementation. However, this is insanely minimal. It really doesn't matter. If you take some kind of fat burner, guess how many calories it's going to increase your metabolism by per day? We're talking like 50. We're talking maybe 100. It's very, very little. It's not worth taking. You want to know a better fat burner? Water. If you drink a liter of water, you need to heat that up. You need to raise it to the temperature of your body. So it'll actually burn 46 extra calories per liter that you drink. That's just free real estate, bro. Water is basically free. It's very easy to consume. It's very easy. It's a product that you can't really market it because it's everywhere and it's ubiquitous. So if you want to burn more fat, just drink a little bit more water. It's also good for your health. It's also good for your digestion, your skin, your heart, everything. Everything in the body needs water. So just drink more water and save the expensive fat burners for some other idiot. Not that I'm calling you an idiot. Another factor is cardio. Instead of just eating less, you could move more. This isn't going to burn a ton of calories, but if you are active throughout the day, this can really, really add up to potentially thousands of calories per day. If you are sedentary, it's going to actually mess with your hormones and it's going to mess with your appetite. So you're going to get hungrier more easily and you're going to naturally eat more food. However, if you're active, if you're walking around, if you're on your feet all day, you're going to burn a lot more calories and it's going to regulate your appetite as well. So you can't just look at it from a diet perspective. You have to look at it from a holistic perspective, from a hormonal perspective, from a behavioral perspective. And just looking at diet and saying it's 80% diet is not going to be particularly useful. And the third factor is going to be health. Now, I'm sure all of us have heard of, stories of people who are 80, 90, 100 years old, and yet they have absolutely horrible diets from a traditional perspective. So they eat oily food, greasy food, fast food, artificial processed food, and yet they live to be basically as long as they otherwise would. Now, you could make the argument that, they would have been 110 years old instead of 102 years old. Well, maybe, but we don't know that. There are a lot of other factors when it comes to health. Diet is just one of them, and I would not say that it is 80% of your health. Sleep is going to be a big one. If you are only sleeping like 2 or 3 hours per night, it doesn't matter how good your diet is. That cannot replace sleep. Nothing can replace sleep. You ever think about why all mammals sleep? Every single one. Some of them only need a few hours of sleep per night, but no mammal has evolved past sleep. it would be a huge advantage to not have to sleep, but no one, no animal, no mammal, no person has been able to get through this obstacle. That is how important sleep is. In fact, I would say sleep is probably more important than diet, and yet it's just not really talked about. Stress is also going to be very, very important. Now, stress is something that is all mental. If you have a stressful situation, it's only a stressful situation because of how you are reacting to the situation. For example, I am very, very introverted. If I have a group of people that I need to meet, that is for me a little bit stressful. But for other people, they're more extroverted. For them, that is an enjoyable event. It actually de-stresses their day. It's the same situation, but just how you react to it can be vastly different. Genetics are also going to be huge for health, for longevity. Some people are just going to live to be long. It's in their blood, it's in their DNA, it's their genetics, it's how they are. Other people, no matter what happens, they aren't going to be 90 or 100 years old. It's just not in the cards. Obesity is also going to be a very big factor. You might say, Geoff, obesity and diet are the same thing. No, they're not. There are plenty of people who are obese and they have, quote unquote, a healthy diet. They're just eating too much. And there are plenty of people who are skinny who are in the opposite situation. So your level of body fat percentage and your diet are certainly going to be correlated, but there are exceptions to that correlation. Two other factors are going to be alcohol and smoking. Now, again, we've all probably heard stories of someone who lived to be 90 or 100 years old, and they drank all day and they smoked all day, and yet somehow they lived a long and healthy life. And this just shows that sleep, genetics, and stress are going to be extremely important. As is often the case with most myths, there is a grain of truth to this one. In some cases, if your diet is absolutely terrible, what might get you the most progress could be 80% diet. However, I would say for most people, diet isn't going to be the limiting factor for any of these muscle growth, fat loss, or health. Alright, that is all for today. Make sure to like the video if you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are not already subscribed. Let me know what kind of content you want to see, and I will see you next time. Peace!